We all have that one friend that can't tell the truth, nobody believes the lies, and they barely even believe them themselves. We're talking about people who said the Detroit Pistons would finish well above 500. I mean, before the season started, me, an eternal optimist when it comes to the Pistons, thinking Killian Hayes, Sekou Doumbouya, Henry Ellenson, Greg Monroe, as we talked about in last video, would become saviors of this team. I thought, we added some veterans and Cade might be an all-star level player, but we're probably maxing out around 35 wins at most. And people would have called me crazy. If someone said 30 wins, would have said, that's still tough. It's really impossible to over double your win total. And we would have expected maybe 28 wins. I think the line was set at like 23.5. When you're looking at this Detroit team, they're 42-32, 10 games over 500. No one would have believed that. I don't think there's a single soul. I mean, there probably were people who bet on it and said, yeah, they'll finish 500 or better. And they just put money on it because it's really good odds. And they said, might as well. But honestly, there's probably a couple people out there who are absolutely watching this video hating on me and saying, but I said this. Well, you are one of the very few. Congratulations to you. Detroit 133-122 Cleveland. I mean, and the game really ended on a 12-1 run that started with a Dennis Schroder deep three early in the shot clock, directly followed by Nassar Thompson's steal, look back, slam dunk, and it was over at that point. Cleveland looked deflated. And Cleveland's going for what, 60 wins right now? Yeah, they're 59-15. That's a big game. And you can say it's the end of the season, Cleveland wasn't trying. They scored 122, and they didn't look that great tonight. And this isn't just a nothing game for Cleveland. They're one game from 60 wins. And there's not a lot of games left. There's, 10 games left? Just under? But you're talking about Boston being right behind, coming off of a 9-game win streak. So they're playing crazy. They could lose that 1 seed. Not saying it's likely, but Detroit is probably going to be holding on to this 5th seed with that Damian Lillard news injury. Prayers to him. If we're looking at a potential second-round matchup with Cleveland and Detroit, and that's not talking about the challenges Detroit will have going against Indiana, but let's say Detroit gets to round 2. You want to have that upper hand going into the matchup. Detroit had that upper hand. They were figuring out how to contain Evan Mobley. And as much as he's been a better offensive player this year, 3 of 10, minus 23, 9 points. Filled the stat sheet, nice for him. Donovan Mitchell, 38 points, but a minus 16. They could not get stops on this Detroit team that I haven't mentioned it yet. They didn't have Cade Cunningham tonight. They played out of their mind. The only positive players on this Cleveland team came in a lot of not great minutes. Javonte Williams, plus 11. Craig Porter Jr., plus 2. Tristan Thompson, plus 2. Dean Wade, plus 8. Everyone else, a minus. Darius Garland, minus 8. And those don't always tell the story, but when they were on the court, Detroit was able to kind of dictate how they wanted to play. This was the best game Dennis Schroder has had in this uniform. And we've talked about a lot of clutch shots from him this year. Like I said earlier, in that sequence of the 12-1 run with that big three-pointer, 17 points, 10 assists, 7 rebounds, filling up the stat sheet. Shooting has been off, 1 of 5. I want to see his percentage in Detroit. But we're talking about a guy filling in for Cade Cunningham, dictating that offense, and taking on the scoring load. We talked about this months ago. Well, I guess it would be a month ago around this time. When we got him, he isn't just going to be here to facilitate like a lot of people wanted. We wanted a backup facilitator. He's a guy who can step in for Cade, who has had his injury problems, and in the late season, you need a veteran to take over. He's doing it. Malik Beasley, he did the shimmy wave. That was the coolest thing all night. 19 points, and if you're on the Cleveland bench, you're probably pissed off. They call a timeout right after that. 17 points for Beasley. 3 of 5 from 3. Jalen Duren. So there was one specific play I want to talk about with him. This is a play me and my brother were watching live. So Malik Beasley guarding Donovan Mitchell up top. He just kind of lets Donovan Mitchell go by. And in all of my time watching Jalen Duren, it looked like Malik Beasley lost that defensive matchup. And then Duren was just going to either foul him or allow an easy dunk or allow an easy layup. What happened is he got past Jalen Duren, got into position, got in front, rose up, and had an amazing contest, not allowing Donovan Mitchell to get those 2 points. That's a big development from Jalen Duren, because we talked about how usually Isaiah Stewart's out there to be that defensive guy. And don't get me wrong, he was. He was playing great defense. He was playing great offense. I would say his offense was better than his defense tonight. But we're talking about Jalen Duren. He was stepping up in the big moments as a big do-it-all center. 16-13. And Marcus Sasser didn't step up, but that's okay because Tim Hardaway Jr. had a throwback, vintage performance. 32 points, 7-11 from 3, 10 of 18 from the field. If Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway shoot like that, you can absolutely match up really well against this Indiana team. Fast pace. They run in transition as well and put up threes in transition. Detroit can match that if those two veterans do what they're supposed to do. And with Tim Hardaway Jr., I want to go into this a little bit more because he was a player that it felt like just about everybody was out on when we got him. We traded Quentin Grimes. Why would we do that? Well, we got 3 or 4 seconds along with THJ for Quentin Grimes. Quentin Grimes was hurt a lot this year. When he played in Dallas, it wasn't great. Obviously, Grimes is doing what he's doing in Philly because he has that opportunity. And Tim Hardaway Jr. showed that he has the potential to do that on a given night. But the biggest thing is Grimes can't play the THJ role that has led to this Pistons success. If you put Grimes on this team instead of THJ, we'd not be where we're at. Because Tim Hardaway Jr., although he's not the defender that Grimes is and the on-ball scorer, we have needed his transition shooting. We've needed his isolation shooting. I mean, the big thing is he's just been such a steady rock for Cade Cunningham to where that might be just up there with Malik Beasley as one of the most important things we've done this offseason. And because of Tim Hardaway Jr.'s contract, I think he will be a cap casualty in some way of a trade into a larger salary in the offseason or getting rid of to upgrade in some sort of way. But I hope we get a player that can fit that role because Tim Hardaway Jr. played that to a T. And Trajan Langdon saw. So hopefully he knows going forward that we need a player that can play that role. We don't need someone to come in and do things that we've seen Quentin Grimes do in Philly. Obviously, that'd be nice. That's a luxury. But Tim Hardaway Jr. has been a great fit here. Ron Holland, 4 of 5 from the field, 10 points, -6, but he had a good game. We saw a lot of minutes with him and Asar Thompson together, and that's kind of like preview of what's up next for Detroit. Because obviously, we saw in the past with Cade Cunningham, if you have non-shooters, no dice. It's not going to work. Cade's going to get collapsed on. But you get one of them or two of them to at least look average. And Ron Holland, 2 of 3 tonight. Asar Thompson actually took 2, 0 of 2. But you put other shooters like Tim Hardaway Jr., Malik Beasley, they're not going to be able to collapse like they did in the past. And with those athletes on offense and on defense, you cannot stop them. And you will be able to get a lot of stops. And I think I can easily say this was the best win of the season for Detroit. This is a momentum leading into Cade's return. This is momentum leading into the playoffs. I mean, this is a statement at this point. Because if teams were still somehow doubting Detroit, because maybe they said, okay, they're a good regular season team, but let's see what they can do late March. This is a statement to show this is what we mean. We have a tough schedule. How can we prove we belong? What do we need to do, and who do we need to beat, and how do we need to beat them to show that we're not just a regular season team now. We're not just a young team that has shown promise and next year will compete. We're ready to compete now. Maybe not for a championship, but we'll make things tricky for contenders. So thank you for joining me. We'll be back soon. See you later.